enough to eye you, but I've seen too much to try you. It's always weirdness why you dig it much too much to fry you. The weirdness flows between us, anyone can tell to see us. Freak scene just can't believe us, or can it just be cool and free us? Sometimes I think I'll kill you. Just don't let me fuck up, will you? 'Cause when I need a friend, it's still you. What a mess.
Zachary Conan here. Welcome to my channel where we talk about films, and welcome to a series I have called 7 Essentials. And this time we're going to be talking about my personal favorite and what I deem to be most essential spy movies. I've been on a spy kick lately, and certainly not about any film that has come out lately. I've just, spy movies are some of my favorite forms of escapism, mostly because they actually deal with some pretty interesting, like, masculine philosophical concepts. A lot of them are pretty nihilistic, but it's always like wearing the visage or masquerading as hedonistic when it's actually hypersensitive. It's about depersonalization and existential others. It's actually really interesting because it's escapism, but it really does address a lot of not toxic masculinity, but inescapable outpourings and expressions of it, just the inescapability of it. And I've been reading one of my favorite novels of all time, been rereading it, revisiting it, Jean Le Carré's The Constant Gardener is so good. I love this novel, and this is really what kind of re-kickstarted my spy movie love and fascination, just reading this amazing Le Carré novel. And it is just, this is just one of the best books I've ever read, so it's got me on that Splinter Cell drip. I've been playing Chaos Theory for like the 16,000th time. Been rewatching some Bond films, you know, just been having a lot of fun getting back into the spy movies. And a lot of times on this channel, we don't normally talk about what is ordinarily described as popcorn fare. We don't normally talk about that kind of stuff, so this is a nice change of pace. And, this channel, I don't want to feel forced to just talk about ultra serious things all the time. I want it to be an extension of my own personal interests, and I'm personally very invested in spy movies right now and in those kind of archetypes. So here we go. I'm going to go into honorable mentions at the end to keep it mysterious, which films I decide to keep on and which films I decide to leave off. And the first film on this list is from 1944, Fritz Lang's Ministry of Fear. Now, Fritz Lang's obviously one of the masters, one of the grand masters of film, one of the ultimate sculptors of German Expressionism, which was a style that was defined by lighting, by a emotive lighting scheme, by very gothic sensibilities, but more verging on the surrealist. It was very interesting, but Ministry of Fear only has one scene that harkens back to that, but it might be the best filmed example of German Expressionism. It's in the seance scene now, which is fucking amazing. Ministry of Fear is one of the anti-Nazi movies that Fritz Lang made when he left Germany and went to the West to make basically conventional films, but he can't help his own artistry, his own genius. And it's actually very interesting that German expatriates, when they come to the West, like Conrad Veidt and Peter Lorre and others like Fritz Lang, would end up having to assume the role of Nazi in American popular culture. Conrad Veidt and Peter Lorre have played famous Nazis, even together in All Through the Night, which is, I think, along the lines of Ministry of Fear, actually, because it's playful, it's fun. I mean, Ministry of Fear revolves around an explosive cake, and stars Ray Milland in one of his finest roles. I love seeing him. It's a wonderful anti-Nazi spy film, and I think it's a brilliant Fritz Lang film. A lot of people refer to it as a lesser Fritz Lang film, which of course any film would be a lesser Fritz Lang film if the other movies in your catalog are M and Metropolis and The Big Heat and The Testament of Dr. Mabuse. Of course, anything's going to seem way less, but it is so entertaining and beautiful and perfect and perfectly, absolutely immaculately and meticulously photographed, because Fritz Lang it just came so naturally to him. He can't suppress his own genius, and Ministry of Fear is certainly worth a watch. At number 6, I got George Clooney's I believe directorial debut, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. I love this movie. Sam Rockwell's performance is awesome. It's absurd. It's funny. It's based on a true story. Chuck Berry of The Gong Show would say that he was like some sort of CIA shadow operative. It was amazing. It was so funny. And also a Charlie Kaufman script. Although he hates that movie because Clooney rewrote it. I would probably argue to the benefit of the story. I mean, imagine if that movie was anything like Being John Malkovich or Adaptation. It just wouldn't work for the kind of film that it was. It was a pretty conventional comedy, but focusing on very unconventional lies and delusions. And Sam Rockwell was incredible, and George Clooney is a very, very, very good director. I would hold this and Good Night and Good Luck up as evidence of George Clooney actually being a pretty phenomenal visual storyteller. Definitely watch Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. You won't regret it. Incredibly entertaining. At number 5, Zero Dark 30, starring Jessica Chastain, directed by Catherine Bigelow, who we have covered on the channel, but we have not covered this film. This film's incredible. One of the best films of the decade that we're currently in. This film was released in 2012. Of course, it's about the manhunt for Osama bin Laden, and there was a lot of spy work involved in that, and it's incredibly put together. Catherine Bigelow challenges kind of the Michael Mann template, the modern Michael Mann template, actually, because she's not aping Heat. She's more so continuing the language that Michael Mann set up in films like Miami Vice and things of that nature. And she does it incredibly. Zero Dark 30 is astonishing for its compositional value. It is perfectly paced, perfectly composed. The acting, of course, is very good, very solid, but it's more about the directorial composition of it. And the sound design is incredible. It's really looking at that from a technical perspective about its compositions. And also as not even subtext, but as text for a post-terror USA is absolutely compelling and spot on and accurate and, I think, eye-opening and philosophically penetrating. At number 4, not a spy film completely, purely, but The Third Man, 1949 by Carol Reed. It does have a lot of qualities that you would find in spy movies. Orson Welles' character, Harry Lime, is certainly some sort of double agent. He has that kind of defected quality to him. Of course. It is incredible. The Third Man is known as one of the greatest films ever made. Graham Greene, based on his novel, known as one of the greatest writers of spy fiction on the face of the earth, probably second only to John le Carré. And John le Carré is only above Graham Greene because John le Carré lived long enough to not only invent the postmodern crime novel with the self-aware and self-hating spy, but he's living right now, so he has lived long enough to even reinvent himself in books like The Constant Gardener. So, The Third Man is one of the most expertly shot films in the world, and one of the most incredibly well acted, and one of the most incredibly paced. Everything about it is incredible. The women are astonishing. Orson Welles is unforgettable. He's in it for 3 scenes, and I love his anecdote about he played a character in a play once who everybody talked about for the first act. And it built up this persona, this myth around him, so that when the first act of that play ended with the silhouette of the character appearing in the background, it was huge. It was astonishing, because you already knew him. He was mythic. He was godlike already. He was archetypal. And that's the way that Harry Lime operates in this film. He becomes the most unforgettable character, one of the most unforgettable characters in all of world cinema. And he only appears in 3 or 4 scenes, and he doesn't show up for an hour into the film. It's incredible! Fucking The Third Man rules. At number 3, 1946 Alfred Hitchcock masterpiece Notorious, starring Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman. Woo! Even saying her name makes me delirious. Imagine getting to gaze at her in perfect black and white Hitchcock cinematography for an hour and 45 minutes or so. It's an incredible film. Hitchcock wrote the book on spy movies with films like North by Northwest, The 39 Steps, but I think that Notorious was his best demonstration of the genre's entire spectrum of qualities and cinematic grandeurs. Notorious is amazing. It's also probably one of Hitchcock's, outside of Rebecca, one of his most psychosexually challenging and provoking films ever made, because it's essentially about a woman who is asked by her lover and by her country to go so deep undercover to the point where she has to marry and go to bed with another man, with a Nazi, with a fucking monster, with a useful idiot, but a fucking monster. And what can I say about Hitchcock? He is perfect. He is one of the true prodigies of film. He's one of the true sculptors of this medium that we celebrate endlessly and talk about and debate about. I mean, film would not be what it was if it were not for Alfred Hitchcock. And Notorious is my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie, thanks for asking. And Notorious is not only the best example of how to perfectly and properly compose a compelling spy movie, but it's also, I think, the most pitch-perfect example of Alfred Hitchcock's mastery. I think it's perfect. Definitely watch Notorious if you have not already. At number 2, we do have Skyfall. Skyfall 2012, directed by Sam Mendes, starring, of course, it's the Daniel Craig Bond film with Javier Bardem as the villain and Judi Dench as the target, as the, I don't know, maybe, perhaps, mother in distress. You might be surprised by me putting this one so high because it is such a normie film, a normie take, but guess what? Fuck you for even assuming that. Skyfall is so fucking good. You want to talk about a challenging blockbuster that really just looks at tropes of hyper-masculinity, of hyper-heterosexuality in the spy genre, especially in something like James Bond, which is known for being hyper-masculine, and just taking those tropes head on and deconstructing them and adding to that language with pathos to create a new ethos of sexuality that is fluid, that is unexpected. I love that Silva and James Bond flirt with each other. Like, what makes you think this is my first time? Like, it is fucking phenomenal. I could spend a half hour talking about the different themes of the film. The mother complex, the prodigal son complex. But then once we get to Silva, you have to turn that shit up to 11,000 with the hyper-poetic and hyper-thrilling, entertaining concepts and themes and ideas that this film starts to just bludgeon you with. But it's mostly the homoerotic ones and the ones of, like, almost incestual brothers battling over the integrity or dignity of their mother. It's fucking nuts. It's fucking great, and the set pieces are wonderful. Of course, this is the post-Dark Knight blockbuster, but I think that it actually finalizes that sort of storytelling, that sort of hero-villain dynamic storytelling that was very popular post-Dark Knight age, in the post-Dark Knight era. I think that it takes all of those great themes that Nolan worked on, that he borrowed from Michael Mann, and perfects them for the blockbuster format. I think that Skyfall is a flawless film, a flawless blockbuster. That's what I go to the blockbuster to see, and that's what I love. And one of Javier Bardem's greatest performances, and dare I say, one of Judi Dench's as well. And Daniel Craig brought so much to it, so much to that film. He brings so much to Bond every time he assumes the role. Skyfall, wonderful. Anticipation time. Because we're at number 1. That's not good coffee, but this is a good movie. Look, I bookended it. The Constant Gardener is my favorite example of a spy film, and I deem it the most essential one. Granted, spies don't play a very large part of it, but since it's based on a novel by Jean le Carré, and there are spies involved in the film itself, it is a film that follows the beats of a spy movie. It follows all the same beats because it was created by the architect of the form. And what do I like most about The Constant Gardener? Well, first of all, Ralph Fiennes is incredible. Ralph Fiennes is all of us who has married a woman that is so enigmatic, so beautiful, so relentlessly dreamlike, sexy, and perfect, that when she is gone, we are still in her shadow, and we are still trying to put together the puzzle pieces of their existence, and it's still just not adding up because she was so huge. And of course, Rachel Weisz deserves every bit of accolade and praise that she earned from this role, and she is the perfect woman to cast in here. Let me be hyper-masculine for a second, since we're talking about a genre that completely endorses, supports, and expresses hyper-masculine concepts. Rachel Weisz is a fucking bombshell. I could not think of a better actress to cast in this film, because she's the kind of woman who you could spend your life just mystified by, especially when she is gone and you don't know the reason for it, and you're completely unequipped to handle the situation with all of its moving parts, all of its cogs. You're completely undertrained. You're completely ineffectual, but you have to find some sort of retribution. It goes beyond closure. You have to find her essence again. You have to keep her integrity intact, her dignity as a woman, as this icon of your desires. The Constant Gardener is about being in love with this archetypal beauty that you can never avenge, that you will never understand, and that you will always be completely hypnotized by, vexed by, completely in awe of. The kind of woman that makes your life worth living, that is then stripped away from you, and you have to do something about it. And of course, the film is incredibly well put together by Mireilles. It's also great. Seeing Pete Postlethwaite, I miss him to death. Great character actor. Constant Gardener has some of his best work in it. And this film was directed by Fernando, who did the criminally underrated Blindness, which has a wonderful Gael Garcia Bernal performance in it, the most villainous thing I've ever seen in my life, and City of God, which everyone loves. So it's actually a pretty good adaptation of Jean le Carré's book. Of course, it can never be as complete or as rewarding, but of course you're dealing with a different medium. So what Fernando's adaptation does perfectly well is it focuses on the woman, Rachel Weisz. It focuses on Tessa Quayle. It focuses on the enigma and the mythos and the beautiful, eternal mystery that she was and the way she captured men's hearts and fates. And it did it perfectly. Constant Gardener, the best spy film ever made. That is hardly even a spy film. And you can tell by the pictures that I've used that weren't included in this video. My honorable mentions, I mean, wish I could have said Goldfinger, Honor Majesty's Secret Service, Casino Royale, the first Mission Impossible film, even though on Twitter I am known to toss a little bit of shade on Mission Impossible, only because it's Tom Cruise desperately trying to manufacture some sort of action star persona. If he wasn't the sole producer of those movies, those films would have stopped at Mission Impossible 2. I do like the first two films. The first film is actually excellently photographed and set up by... it's brilliantly designed by Brian De Palma, which actually seems to be what a lot of you idiots hate about the first movie. It's Brian De Palma's direction. You youngins, you're too stupid. Mission Impossible 2 is just fun because it's John Woo's probably most unapologetically ostentatious American outing. It's pretty funny. And Thandie Newton. Oh my fucking god. Picture Thandie Newton time. I should not have to defend MI2 any more than that. But it is the most tonally inconsistent franchise I've ever seen. Every single film is Tom Cruise trying something to become this stupid fucking manufactured action star, and it doesn't work, so he just tries something different every time, and it wasn't until like the fourth or fifth entry that he finally was like, oh, this is what works, this is what most people generally respond to. And what movie do you give 4 fucking chances to? It's with its tone, it is so inconsistent, and I'm comparing it even to horror franchises, and Mission Impossible is just fucking less reliable and consistent than that shit. And of course, The Lives of Others is a really well put together movie. I think that The Good Shepherd, De Niro's directorial effort, starring Angelina Jolie and Matt Damon, including a fucking lot of other people, is really underrated. Look at the CIA. And I love a lot of spy movies, man. I basically love every single one. Honorable mentions list would be just stupid long. Stupid long, but I really want to thank you guys for watching this video. If this is your first time at the channel, subscribe to it. No matter who you are, you should like the video and comment with your favorite spy films of all time. Which ones are you fucking mad at me for leaving off the list? Because I left a lot of good ones off the list. You gotta be fucking honest with you guys. I left a lot of great ones off the list, including even Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is Le Carré's best, probably best screen adaptation, at least considered by most of the public. I'm all for The Constant Gardener. You guys have a short-term memory span. You guys lose your memories. Okay, I've been talking too much. I can't even finish my sentences. Thank you for bearing along with me. Thank you for checking out my video. Thank you for watching my channel. And this is Zachary Conan saying, this video will self-destruct in, I don't know. If you don't hit the like button, your entire computer will self-destruct. That's true. That's not a myth. I'm not lying. You have to click that like button, then you have to subscribe, or else your entire fucking computer is gonna melt down. This mission is due to terminate in like, I don't know, now. Click it!